health-seeking behavior. There are times that also that does not work so well, and I must say that it happens when sometimes if you create more demand, the supply is not ready. So you have a situation where the clients get to the facility and they are not actually received. And that's a challenge because you need to have a balance. So if you create a flow of people going to the facility, there must be, at the local clinic, there must be a nurse that is available. You might get the nurse is not there, and that creates a challenge because then your clients will come back and say, but we are going there, we don't get the help. There are also challenges that when you for instance, you give medication to a client and there is no follow-up, proper follow-up. So we end up actually looking at these cases where our clients, we follow up through our what you call the groups that we have at the community level, support groups. These groups are helping actually to make sure that people are staying on their treatment. Sometimes, though, they are challenged because they don't have the resources all the time to be following up on the clients. Sometimes they are farmers, they move away to other places, they are doing their own activities, and then they lose the client in the process. So, just like we are saying, sometimes I think donor resources are centered in urban, they focus on urban center response, and we lose at the end of the day the rural interventions that are very, very the kind of grassroots interventions that are very, very important. As you know, most of our population are in rural area settings.
Shefeni, let's talk to you a little about what is the validity of some of those claims as an activist? What is the reality of it?
Just to add up on one, and I'm sure my brother, Mr. Chalonda here, will take it up. I think it's high time that, especially, I'm not sure about the private sector, but the government, I think it's high time that they start providing testing services during lunch hour as well as weekends, because that's where most of the employees get time. You know, you find it very unfortunate that you spend maybe 3-4 days offering counseling to a certain person that want to access testing, and then they go there during lunchtime and they get disappointed, and then they would never want to go back again.
Okay, and because this comes to the issue of quality. What's the level of the quality of the services? Because I think maybe it's over the point of just access. We're talking about the output legitimacy now. So how do you address some of these concerns in ensuring quality health services?
Yeah, well, just to add up a bit in terms of what Mr. Shefeni is saying, I think when the Minister started of Health, talk about facilities that are being closed between 1 and 2, and urged that these facilities should be open and services should be provided. So I'm just guessing that we're moving towards that. In terms of quality improvement, I think first and foremost, when you look at the assurance of stock in terms of supply chain management, obviously there were some of a setback, I think especially back in 2006. I wish I could say, 2016, I wish I could say it was just a little blip in a mere perfect system, but unfortunately it's not, because some of these challenges are beyond our control, especially when it comes to supply chain management. And lucky enough, I think people move fast enough to ensure that the stock in terms of the testing kits are within the facilities and rightly where they are supposed to be. Again, I think in terms of when you look at the numbers, when you look at the percentages that we're getting of people getting tested, when you look at task shifting, in terms of we coming from a lay person providing these services in terms of testing versus back then when it was provided by doctors or nurses or qualified people in terms of clinical settings. So again, I think there's quite a lot of changes that were made. And even then, I think we went beyond the facility level, where we're looking at community adherence clubs that are being established now, the CBA facilities that are being established now, to make sure that communities is engaged, fully engaged, and again, in trying to make sure, again, that adherence, getting the HIV positive on board and retaining this status.
Just another question we added. Another dimension that I think that has really changed the narrative is around a PEP prophylaxis that is provided if you might have fear of contracting HIV. Talk to us about how that has kind of compounded the interventions that assist in mitigating the impacts of HIV.
I think the post-exposure prophylaxis are still available at all health facilities. I think this is being provided at the mere instance where someone has been exposed or seen to be exposed to being bodily fluid or any other blood fluid. And as such, that this is provided, and after 4 to 6 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
How often is it accessed?
These are open everywhere at any facilities. Even now, when you cut yourself with whatever, and then somehow my blood mixed with yours, and you're afraid of this, you can right now just get up and go to any facilities, and you can access the PEP. And only after the 4 or 6 weeks can you go back then, where the HIV status can be determined after the fact. So I guess.
Yeah. Gentlemen, it's closing down. We've got about 6 minutes left, so maybe we can give our concluding remarks. What's important to you? What's significant for the Namibian population to hear when it comes to this year's commemoration that really focuses on know your status? How can we become more confident in accessing these health services? And then how do we react more confidently given the status that we might hear, whether it's positive or negative?
Very short one is that you see this panel is all men panel, and interestingly so, one of the things that we are actually struggling with is getting men to services, to access services. Their health-seeking behavior is very low, and I think one will have to appeal to fellow men to say we need to really go out there and access the services and know our status, because it's very, very important that we can then protect our families, can protect our children, can protect our loved ones.
Okay. Well?
Yeah, I think the government, the Ministry of Health has a combination prevention strategy that includes obviously getting tested and knowing your status, but as Mr. Sharonda was saying, also like pre-exposure prophylaxis. If you self-identify a risk behavior, you can take that will reduce your risk, and you can use that together with condoms and other intervention. But also, one of the ways Namibia has been really had success is treatment as prevention. So if you are treated and you're very suppressed, you're less likely to spread the virus, and in that way, that's also a way of prevention.
Thank you very much. Shivani, what's your words? What's your message to the people?
Maybe as a person living with HIV, maybe I should be honest that I hardly think that I'm HIV positive, and until somebody come and insult me, for instance, or say a very negative word to me, that's the only time I come back and say, oh, yes, I look in the mirror. And I would encourage, like Mr. Chalanda say, just to encourage my fellow men to, to stand up. Because if you look, for instance, if you look at how many men are actually getting involved in the talks or attending events regarding the HIV, you'll be disappointed. Yeah. Thank you.
Closing words?
All right, just for 30 seconds probably. We're looking at 3 things. We're looking at the combination prevention, where we basically are requesting the public to access the voluntary male medical circumcisions, get tested, know your HIV tested, consistently correctly utilize condoms. And basically, we're also looking at the component of sustainability. I think we're very thankful for our donors and partner stakeholders, but the government also needs to intensively look within itself in terms of how we're going to approach the management of HIV and AIDS. The other thing is we need the public support. Be that the service that are being provided from the perspective of the ministry, we need public participation in this. We need the public to come on board in terms of, supporting the ministry with regard to defeating the HIV and AIDS.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. All the best in your continuous hard work in ensuring that HIV does not negatively impact our society. Well, maybe that's all the time we had. Before we say goodnight, the narrative has changed about HIV/AIDS. It really is no longer a killer. Even if you have it, it's a medical condition that can be addressed with various and multiple interventions that happens in a coordinated way. So please go out there, spread the message within your households, within the health facilities, that this is an issue that Namibia can actually deal with, and that we can live positively with regards to how we manage a healthy society. So make sure that you are working and making decisions that are in interest of your health. That's all the time we had from Nanda Shapao, who's a sign language interpreter, and myself, Patrick Sam. Until next week, it's good night.